Do you guys remember when I was playing Fallout 76 during its beta? I was pretty much live streaming the entirety of my beta experience, and during that I had one thing pretty interesting or funny happen. Towards the end of the beta, I was scrapping weapons as you do pretty rapidly because that is how you earn weapon mods in Fallout 76. And after leaving that workbench, I discovered, hey, my Pip-boy's gone. As I tried to use it in game, I got an error message indicating that I couldn't. And even further, looking at my character model in the third person, my Pip-boy was actually gone off of my character. Originally, I assumed, oh, it's a minor issue. I'll just relog, restart the game, and it'll be back. But no, that wasn't the case. Despite several different attempts at retrieving it, I was unsuccessful. I eventually did get my Pip-boy back, and it was thanks to something on Bethesda's side. It was out of my control seemingly, but large in part as the months went by, I kind of forgot about that whole sequence of events until just last week where I actually had it happen again. This time I didn't scrap my Pip-boy, but rather I logged onto a server, and I guess due to some kind of server glitch, I just never got a Pip-boy. My Pip-boy was never loaded onto my character, and even more odd, I had all of the abilities of power armor, but I didn't actually have power armor on, so I could fly around with the jets coming out of my feet. Fortunately, the second time around, just relogging did fix things, but then it got me wondering, what would the experience be like to play Fallout 76 without ever using your Pip-boy? My first question was it even feasible to beat the game this way? And even if it was, could you do it with ease or even at all, or would you just end up dying a bunch? And in this video, I tried just that. I tried to play through Fallout 76 without using a Pip-boy, and I think you actually might find my results from this kind of surprising, because I definitely was surprised by it. For the purposes of this video, I didn't use a glitch to actually get my Pip-boy removed, but rather after picking it up, I actually remapped the Pip-boy key so I wouldn't use it, as well as actually remapping the VATS key. It's actually hotly debated whether or not VATS is tied to the Pip-boy. In Fallout New Vegas, you can only use VATS after getting a Pip-boy, but in Fallout 4, you could actually use VATS before getting a Pip-boy, but in Fallout 4, you were a synth, right? That's what the theories say. And we know synths can use VATS, so for the purposes of this video, I thought VATS will be associated with the Pip-boy, and thus I can't use VATS either. But of course, things like crafting tables, terminals, or even notes are all fair game, because they don't require the Pip-boy to be used in order to actually access them. And from there, I was off, out of the vault, into Appalachia, trying to see how good of an adventure I could have without the help of my Pip-boy or VATS as a proxy. In Fallout 76, right off the bat, you'll realize you could actually do quite a bit without a Pip-boy. Even though you technically can't open your inventory, using the Hot Wheel menu, you could actually assign things to this. It gives you access to a lot of the major weapons in the game. You could assign food or other aid items here, so you have access to all of those. And going through some of the early levels, it was pretty normal. It was a little bit more annoying to manage my inventory, but large in part, there weren't too many issues that I saw. That was until I made my way over to the Overseer's camp and started getting armor pieces. I realized you actually can't add armor pieces to the favorites menu from the favorites menu. You can manually favorite them from your inventory and then they'll pop up here, but you couldn't do it the other way around, meaning that for the purposes of this playthrough, I literally couldn't use armor unless I found power armor. So I became a power armor reliant character, but things were still largely going good. Fortunately, in Fallout 76, Bethesda made it so the map is a totally separate entity. It's like a paper map you have in your pocket. So you still are able to fast travel around, making this playthrough even more viable. Although one frustration that I definitely noticed, you actually can't untick quests because, well, you can't get to the quest section of your Pip-boy. So you'll have a bunch of quests all just sitting on the side of your screen, filling it up quite completely, which could get a little annoying. And as I was venturing around, I was genuinely kind of shocked by how well everything was going. And that is when I hit my first major roadblock. You see, in Fallout 76, you don't just carry around a tape recorder. The thing you use to actually play back holotapes is your Pip-boy. Even further, when actually looting holotapes out of an inventory, it is auto-playing in your Pip-boy. So I kind of rationed, I can't do that. If you use the quick menu, it does automatically start playing once you hit enter on it. But even beyond that, if you even open up the inventory, even though it no longer says play, if you click take on this, it will start automatically playing from your Pip-boy. And this is a pretty big roadblock. There's several quests in Fallout 76 that you can't progress in, as in literally the first quest of the game, without listening to holotapes. In fact, most of the story is told through holotapes, so they're kind of vital here. Considering myself mostly dead in the water already, I just went out exploring, maybe doing some side quests or events. I killed a bunch of farmhands in Flatwoods like 3 times. I made my way over to Morgantown to see what was going there, and of course, fill up the side of my screen a little little bit more with those extra miscellaneous quests, but while in Morgantown, it actually hit me. I went to a terminal and I was just doing normal side quest things, and then I realized, wait a second, you could load holotapes into terminals. So for the holotapes that are manually put into your inventory, you're fine. You could just play them through the terminal, but how do I get the holotapes out of those containers without playing them first? Well, I found a workaround for this also. If you actually click take all from these containers, even if there's only one holotape in it, it won't actually play it. It'll just input it into your inventory and then you'll have to play it some other way. And this was actually a pretty legitimate solution. Now, whenever I found a holotape, I'd have to take it out of the container and run around until I found a terminal to actually play it at, which ended up being surprisingly immersive. But from there, you could actually just start progressing through Fallout 76. I made my way through Flatwoods, joined the responders, found out what was going on with the scorched you see everywhere, and then worked my way over to Morgantown to continue doing some of the main quests. Although it was around this point I hit my next, more minor roadblock, but another one that did stand out to me. Naturally, with it being the early game and all, I was picking up literally everything. I wanted to scrap all of those weapons to learn weapon mods. Then I found myself over-encumbered and far from any stash boxes or even vendors to sell things to. It was at this point I realized you actually can't drop things if you don't have access to the Pip-boy. You have a couple of options. You could go the typical chem route of just enhancing your carry weight temporarily and waddling away somewhere, or alternatively, what is actually more useful, you just have to find somebody else's corpse and then just dump a bunch of stuff on there. But outside of that, things go surprisingly well. I did finish up the responders questline, move my way over to the raiders. Initially starting out the raider questline, I had a pretty big scare. Initially, as you get in range of the top of the world, the quest objective is tune into the top of the world radio. The only radio that could actually tune into that is in your Pip-boy, but if you just walk to the top of the hill, it will register that part of the quest anyway, and you'll hear Rose over the loudspeakers. And from there, it's pretty much smooth sailing. There are other obstacles you might encounter, but pretty much all of them have a workaround. I considered the issue of getting through vault doors, as those typically require you to put in your Pip-boy. The only one of those you'll encounter is the Enclave bunker, and fortunately for that, as well as many other locked doors, you can just use the handprint scanner instead. One thing that will become glaringly obvious as soon as you make it to the Raider questline, and then even more so when you get into the mire, this game gets really, really hard. Naturally, this whole time, you can't use armor, and you can't use perk cards. The no perk card thing in particular, it's not like you could spec yourself out for a sneak build. You can sneak around and try and abuse that anyway, and you kind of have to survive. But as soon as you get caught and just have a flurry of bullets come your way, oftentimes this could end up taking down most of your health bar in just a matter of seconds. I found this was the worst in the Mire region. This is when you're encountering the free states and going to some of their bunkers, because there's a lot of creatures. A lot of these creatures will just sprint at you and start biting you. So if you even get detected, you're pretty much screwed most of the time here, unless you could finish them off pretty quickly with maybe a good legendary weapon you found. Of course, the fix for this is just to use power armor as an alternative, which you can find pretty regularly. That does definitely help you out once you get your first set. And although that will pretty easily get you through the Savage Divide region, once you actually make your way into the mire, I found that even though that was a fix, you really started to have some problems with damage output. Considering you had no perk cards, that meant you couldn't get some of those damage bonuses, but even further, it also meant that you couldn't craft certain items for your weapons. You're restricted to whatever you could craft without perk cards. You could still buy weapon mods and go that route, but overall you really have to think a lot more before getting into combat because you just aren't as strong as you typically are. And all around, I felt like this experience was a really cool and unique one. The no Pip-boy run of Fallout 76 makes a lot of things just a lot more complicated, such as managing your inventory, listening to holotapes, and of course the fact that you could only now use power armor to reasonably survive. But at the same time, some of these additional challenges really made it felt like I was playing a hardcore mode, and it was some of the most fun I've had in this game in a really long time. You have to rely way more on finding or shopping for really good weapons rather than just crafting one and then stacking it up with perk cards. It also made it so I used a much wider variety of weapons. I wasn't just sticking to the one kind that I was building my character for, but rather switching around based off what I found at a given time. Of course, if you found a couple of really good legendaries, that could totally shift the focus, But overall with this one, I would say going through some of the major steps, trying to beat the game, it's definitely possible, it's definitely difficult, and if you're looking for a new way to experience this game, it's something I'd recommend trying. I was really surprised by the results of this one, and I'd love to do more things like this in the future. So let me know what you guys think. Did you like this video? Do you want to see more videos like this going forward? One I actually had an idea for that could be kind of cool is using no maps, like getting a mod or asking somebody to make a mod that removes all map markers and then never opening the map in my game, so I truly had no idea where I was going. I would have to use like a physical map to actually navigate, which would be kind of awesome. Either way, that's going to wrap it up for this. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.